cup at a time. Yeah, Miss Liz. Tea time. Yeah, making a difference. One cup at a time. Tea time. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz. Tea time. Making a difference. One cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. Tea time.
Well, good morning and welcome to Tea Time. That's right, we're back for a new week in June. Oh my goodness, June 22nd already. We are almost at the end of June and going in July. We have done 6 months of Tea Times already. We are at number 76. I don't know how we do it, but we keep doing it. So today I have an amazing woman in the studio. She is sitting in the back. She is a warrior mom. That's right. We're going to bring some mom to the table this morning. So grab your tea, grab your coffee, grab your breakfast. Don't forget to eat your breakfast every morning. It's deeply important. We're going to talk about healthy eating and autism this morning. So there's going to be a lot of twists and turns. So before we get started, we're going to do all the good stuff. We're going to do a disclaimer and a little bit of bio on Tracy. And then we're going to get Tracy in here and she's going to spill a good, strong TEA with you this morning. So the disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz myself is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any Tea Time show hosted by myself, Miss Liz, is always brought forward in good faith. However, may bring forward dialogues and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the giving time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participants are responsible for using their good judgment in taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussion for some where they may be emotionally at risk. It's significant to know that this show is engaging in discussion forums only to offer and inspire awareness and connection and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about the disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, through my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in today's show in any aspect, I myself, Miss Liz, welcomes you. And should you decide that this show is not made for you at this time, I respect that wish and will see you at a later date and a later date and time. And all Tea Times this year are done on a Thursday unless they are a rescheduled Tea Time, which is a Monday or Tuesday. So now let me give you a little bit on Tracy. Tracy is a mom. She's an author. She's an advocate, speaker. And she's a warrior. That's right. She's a warrior mom. So Tracy Slepcevic, I hope I'm saying it right, is a leading voice for families impacted by autism. As a former U.S. Air Force veteran, best-selling author, sought-after speaker, certified integrative health coach, and loving mother, Tracy brings a unique perspective and passion to her advocacy work. With her son Noah as her inspiration, Tracy has dedicated over 14 years to exploring alternative therapies for children with autism. For Tracy's full bio, you can check out Miss Liz's Facebook page or LinkedIn and Instagram, all of that good stuff. So let me get Tracy in here so I can have some tea. Welcome, Tracy. It is nice to have you here this morning.
Well, thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. There's always a lot of words in the morning, right? To get
Right?
started. And my tongue, I'm still like half asleep here. I'm waking up slowly and getting that tea into me. So, Tracy, could we start off with a little bit about who Tracy is as a little girl and who Tracy is as a big girl?
Little girl. I very loving, sweet, kind, giving, and I don't think much has changed as I've grown up. I moved to inspire others, to transform, to empower them, and assist them on their journey.
So, Tracy, you're a warrior mom. You have this incredible book that you came out with because of your son Noah. Do you want to share a little bit on this book and that whole journey on being a mother who has a child who has autism?
Yes. So I am the best-selling author, Warrior Mom, A Mother's Journey in Healing Her Son with Autism. So many years ago, when my son was 1, I took him in for his well baby visit, and he got his MMR and varicella, and he got very sick from that. And from there, he began to regress into a state of autism. So, what they call is regressive autism. What I call is vaccine injury. It took me 2.5 years to try and figure out what was wrong with my son, because the system, meaning doctors and uh, Harbor Regional Center caregivers, just kept telling me over and over that all of this was just normal. Harbor Regional Center lost my paperwork after the first evaluation. 2 preschools told me that my kid had special needs and they couldn't care for him. So I didn't know what to do, because I trusted my pediatrician, and the only thing that ever came out of that woman's mouth was, "This is all normal. He's fine. It's normal. He just needs speech. It's normal, 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 normal." A child losing all his speech, motor skills, and cognitive function is normal. Uh,
Wow.
so I'm here to tell you, as an advocate and as a parent, that is not normal. And always go with your gut feeling. As a parent, we are given an intuition, especially as a mom. We are so connected to our children, and to really trust those gut feelings and those motherly intuitions or parent intuitions, and act upon them. Because I always say that that's God's way of communicating with us. And along my journey, I was very desperate. I didn't know what to do for my child, and God would send me angels. And it's such a beautiful journey. I definitely had my struggles, but I look at um, the whole meaning of it, because my son gave me purpose, and purpose to be able to write a book, to assist other parents on their journey, and truly make the world a better place. And so from there, people came into my life to direct me on this perfect path of healing. And eventually, when Noah was 3.5, I was told that he had autism. And from there, I actually had to go back to the office, and I saw my naturopathic doctor in the hallway, whose office was adjacent to ours. And he reaches out and he gives me a hug. He saw that I was crying, and he's like, "What's the matter?" And I said, "Well, Noah was diagnosed with autism." And he looks at me and he says, "Noah's going to be fine. I want you to go home, and I want you to do your homework, because kids are making great strides with biomedical intervention." And back then, I had no idea what biomedical intervention was. I definitely had studied nutrition for many years. But what it is addressing the underlying conditions associated with any disorder, um, to be able to function better, whether it be a child with autism, anybody who has neurological issues, or ailments. I mean, as I was healing my own son and working on his health, I was healing myself. So it was quite the beautiful journey. From there, I sucked those tears back up into my eyes, and I went home and I got to work. I was a mom who had to get her PhD overnight in how to heal my kid. And that was exactly what I did. I read books. I went to conferences. I watched videos. I went to tea talks with other parents and parent meetings, and you name it. I went the distance, and I traveled near and far for treatments for my son. I did whatever I had to. It didn't require money, just a clear intention that he was going to live a normal functioning life. And it doesn't mean that healing doesn't mean that I changed or cured my son. I just want to clarify that, because as a lot of people look at that word healing, they presume that it means something different. And it's provoked a lot of, explanation and digging a little further with some people on what that means. My son is still on the spectrum, but he is fully functioning. He can take care of himself. He can drive. He can do everything that a neurotypical person. I can't call him a child anymore. He'll be 18 next month. So he can do whatever it is that he needs to do to survive. And that was my goal. And that's my goal for other children and individuals. I mean, I had a woman whom I met at a conference who is on the spectrum, and she's my age, and she read my book, and she's like, wow, I got to implement some of these things for myself, health-wise, because I talk a lot about, cleaning up our diet and our gut, and there's a huge gut-brain connection. And with autism, they have found that there is a direct link with gastrointestinal inflammation issues and the brain, because we have, through the nervous system, our gut is connected to our brain. So if you have a messed up gut, then you are going to suffer neurologically somehow. So number one is really, really addressing the gut. And I found that Noah definitely had leaky gut, and he had the distended belly, the dark circles around the eyes. He wasn't sleeping. He had the self-injurious behavior, all those things that present themselves as leaky gut. And the reason being is because my son had chronic ear infections as a child. And from that, he was on antibiotics almost monthly. How my pediatrician thought that was okay or normal is beyond me, knowing what I know now. I mean, as a parent back then, I trusted my pediatrician. And that's the problem, is we're trusting these doctors and they're not doing their job. Not at all. They are taking not even 5 minutes to look at your child, to answer questions. And their main goal is to just prescribe medications and be on their way, because that's where they make money.
Yep.
So I can honestly say that since Noah was 3 years old, he has not seen a pediatrician, and he survived. Can I tell you that?
That's where the warrior comes in, right? You go to battle and you're like, no, like this is like the mommy instinct just kicks in, and I love, Tracy, that you're an advocate for other parents out there, because you're bringing so much good information to the table. You know what I mean? That word healing, they think automatically, boom, it's all gone. It's like a magic pill. You take this pill and it's all. That's not healing. Healing is the journey and the purpose and the understanding of the illness. We don't live with the title of the illness. We live as an individual, but we learn to understand how that person it will grow and learn. They may learn a little different than others, and that means there's nothing wrong with that child. It just means they're going to take more time. And I'm really glad that you became an advocate, Tracy, because just in the last 15 minutes that we've been talking, I've taken down 7 notes here. The leaky gut, and especially as a grandma now, I'm watching my little one because they do have some form of ADHD in the family. So I'm looking for those signs of autism and stuff like that. And it's like you said, don't trust doctors just because they have the doctor title. Really, if something's not right and it feels not right, go out and search for it. And that was your purpose. Noah was your purpose. Like, he was born for a reason, and he was like, Mom, you got to get on board here. Like, you got to be tough. And so how did you get the title warrior, Mom?
Well, this has definitely been a spiritual battle from the beginning. I can tell you that any parent out there who has a child with special needs is going to have to go to bat for them. They're literally going to have to put on their armor, and they are going to have to advocate, and they are going to have to protect their child at all costs from the beginning. And this is for any child these days, not just a child with special needs.
Yeah.
So I encourage parents, protect your kids. I see a new mom holding a baby. I'm like, protect your child with every ounce of your being. Do your research before you ever put anything that is experimental. And I'm here to tell you that every single vaccine on the schedule is experimental. They have never been through an actual placebo trial. So everything's experimental, and then be careful of the food that your child is eating. If it's not grown directly from the earth, or I always say, if you can pick it, pluck it, skin it, grow it, you can eat it.
I like it. You can almost make a song with that for kids. Right? Or children's book.
That's nutrition. Take away all the manufacturers and all those the big companies who are just making millions and even billions off of poisoning our children and ourselves, right? Packaged foods, genetically modified foods, glyphosate in everything, pesticides, right down to the cookware that you cook in. If you're cooking on nonstick cookware, I'm going to encourage you to throw it away. Don't even give it away. Throw it away. Recycle it if you really like, but get rid of it because it is poison. And so is ceramic. It's no different. And so there's so many different things. And when I chose to write my book, one, it was during COVID times. And I was very concerned for people and children, not just the kids, but all of us. As I saw them rolling out, another experimental vaccine. And I kind of saw how this whole thing was playing out and what was happening. So I'm like, now it's time for me to tell my story, because it's been a long time since I stepped back into the world of autism. It really has. So I just sat down. I had no idea what I was doing, but I also say another angel kind of directed me on this path as well, because in 2020, the summer of 2020, I was on a retreat and I met this woman who had just wrote a book. And I'm like, wow, I've always wanted to write a book about my journey with my son. And she's like, so what's stopping you? And it totally stopped me in my tracks. And I'm like, well, I guess that would be me. And it's time. So when I got home, I took some online classes on, how to write a book, what to do. And I just sat down and I just started writing. I didn't necessarily go through the steps of how it's typically done, but I did what resonated with me, which is what I've always done. And from there, they always say the best way to do it is to just sit down and write down 100 different, if you're writing like a biography of any sort, write down 100 different events or 100 different things that you want to write about. And then eventually put them in order, right? You might delete something, you might add something, things might change as your story progresses. But those 100 things is what you're going to, start your story. And then you'll build your table of contents, as you go along. And, for those of the people out there who are looking for a publisher, having a proposal, you don't even have to finish your book to submit a proposal to a publisher. So you can submit the proposal. What they really want to see is they want to see how you're going to market your book. That is like number one to publishers. How are you going to sell your book? How are you going to market it? Is it going to be successful? And am I going to make money? That's what they want to know.
That's the number one. Right.
Right. So I put together a proposal. I had one literary coach who assisted me with, how to write a proposal. And she also assisted me with how to lay out my book. Because I was like, wow, there's so many things that I want to put in it. And I don't know how to do it. And she's like, well, how about you do it in 3 different parts? So the first part was my story. And it talks about a story of trials and tribulations and inspiration and hope and all those things that make me a warrior mom, right? During this time, my husband fights against big insurance. And during this time, and this was around 2008, 2009, he exposed big insurance, and the state of California's insurance commissioner for fraud and collusion on smoke and ash claims in Northern California. Because what the insurance companies were doing is they were telling them to just, vacuum up the smoke particles. Now, all that's carcinogenic material, and that just floats around. If it's not properly remediated, then it's going to stay exactly where it's at. It's going to get into the ventilation system. It's going to, and it's going to cause health problems down the road. So my husband exposed them on the news for fraud and collusion, and that resulted in us being fined $250,000 for him acting as a public adjuster when he was a contractor. And then he wound up on the front page of the LA Times in a smear campaign. So with that, we lost our home, his business of 20 years, another business that we had doing conferences, and we had to start all over. But during this time, I had a clear intention to heal my kid. My naturopathic doctor was like, your child could live a fully functioning life. So there wasn't anything that was going to change my mind or redirect me. It just got to look a lot different. So I sold whatever I could in my home on eBay to pay for treatments and, doctor visits. I bartered for treatments. For my son's hyperbaric oxygen therapy, I said, my son deserves this treatment. Is there any way that I can work for it? Can I do your marketing? I'll work your front desk. I'll scrub your toilets. I really don't care. If you give me an opportunity to create this for my child, I'll do it. And they did. You'd be surprised how much you can accomplish when you just set that clear intention to do what it is that you choose to do.
Well, you were on a path, right? And you were like, I'm going to get it done. I don't care if I got to scrub a toilet, but this is getting done.
Yep. So I did their marketing on the weekends. I didn't have to scrub toilets. And they gave my son 40 hours of hyperbarics. Oh. And I worked it off over the years. Even as years went by, the center's no longer there, but even as the years went by, I always referred them to parents, and their willingness to assist me was very special and meant the world to me. And so that's what my journey got to look like. When we took my son to the Ukraine for stem cell therapy, now in a lot of my interviews, I get those little comments, oh, well, you have the money to take your child to Europe. I didn't. I short sailed my home. And I pulled the money from that to take my son to get stem cell therapy. And with that, we had to literally start from nothing. And we just climbed our way back to the top. It was a long and beautiful and humbling journey. I have no regrets, none whatsoever, of anything that has ever happened. That my child was diagnosed with autism, that we lost everything, nothing. Because we learned so much. You'd be surprised, all the takers in your life, how they just go away.
Right? When you hit rock bottom, you kind of almost clear the table, right? It's almost like you find out who really is got your back.
It's a beautiful and clean new slate
Yep.
That you get to discover. But as time would go on, it was I would just research and research and research anything that came my way. And I still do. I'm still a major research junkie. I listen to interviews. Like I was watching Kennedy and Joe Rogan and all these things, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how is it? So I knew that sticking a cell phone to your ear can cause tumors, and it can cause all kinds of stuff, cause inflammation on the brain. But I didn't know that it actually opens up the blood-brain barrier. Now, when that blood-brain barrier is opened up, that opens up an opportunity for the toxins in your body. And that includes heavy metals that we're exposed to, mercury, aluminum, all those things, to travel to the brain because that blood-brain barrier is open. So taking a phone and sticking it to your ear has many, many horrible side effects. And so I've always been like, I talk to with speakerphone. Everyone's like, am I on speakerphone? Yes, you're on speakerphone, because if you want privacy, I'll go into another room, but I'm not sticking that thing to my ear. And I love that my kids, like, he doesn't do the wireless headphones. He did for a short time. And now he does the wired headphones, and I will expense whatever headphones he wants if they are wired. Here's the wired headphones, please. So he was always, he'd do more. And then I have my cousin who got cancer in his leg. And I could tell you, he'd tell me, I said, did you ever stick your cell phone maybe in your, like, a cargo pocket or something? And he'd be like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm going to take an estimated guess. And I'm not a doctor. I did go to school for alternative medicine, but I'm going to take that estimated guess that having that phone in your side pocket is what created that tumor. And to remove it, it looked like a shark took a bite out of his leg. It was that bad. It wasn't just a little tumor. It was massive.
Well, there's so much acid and stuff that's coming from your phone. Like, women for the longest time would stick it in their bra, and that created breast cancer.
Yeah.
There's an underlining to the phone and the body. Like, you just don't have it near it. Like, I'm half deaf, so I have hearing aids, so everything goes in my hearing aids. So
am I.
So I don't have to worry about that phone by my ear, but
right? So I only have one good ear to put my phone at, and I don't want to, because I'm deaf in my right ear. So I always say that was part of my, I can say my toxic overload from just being in the military and all the vaccines that you're given in one single day. I think today, when you enlist, it's 13 vaccines the first day. It's horrible. Wow. And every year when I would get my flu shot, I can honestly tell you, I would get the worst flu. And I mean, chills, body aches, you name it. I was so sick every year, right on target. And I never put two and two together. I'd go home for the holidays, and my mom's like, how come every time you come home for Christmas, you get the flu? And I'm like, I don't know. And then one year I decided to question, I'm like, why am I getting this flu shot? Every year I get the flu. And I got written up for that. So
Wow.
you don't question things when you're in the
So
military.
you're that rebel that goes out and opens a door for
I
conversation.
wasn't even trying to be a rebel in the military, but apparently I was.
But I think we need rebels in the world because we need to open those doors. We need to question things. If we just say it's fine, just give me the shot, and you're not asking questions and you're not getting informed, all you're doing is allowing them to put this into you. And then
Right.
whatever happens, they don't take accountability for it, but then they say, oh, well, it's not our issue. It's not our problem. Well, yeah, it is your problem because you didn't tell us, you weren't upfront with us that we may have these symptoms. We may have these. It's just like with the COVID shots. They weren't giving out the proper information. They were misleading people with the shots. Oh, take shot 1, take shot 2, take a booster, take another booster, take another booster, and there was no end to it. We need to start asking questions. We need to start being our advocates, like be our advocates for our children, but also be advocates for ourselves as adults.
Well, we have to live for our children.
Right.
So I have close family friends that have passed. I have friends of friends that have passed. I have a very dear friend who has myocarditis, which is usually a 5-year sentence, death sentence, because he's TSA. And he was like, well, I'm going to retire in a couple of years. I have to get this shot. No, you don't. No, you don't. We're telling you, don't do it. Your life depends on it. I mean, we were talking to some of the best doctors out there that were like, don't do it. They're warning. One of the number one doctors who first stepped out and said, this is dangerous. It's a deadly vaccine. And it's experimental. Don't do it. That was Dr. Rashid Buttar. And he stated 2 days before he passed, I feel like I've been poisoned, because he went into the hospital he had a heart condition from a child. And he went in for his heart condition and he's like, I feel like they poisoned me. 2 days later, he was gone. And this was one of the biggest advocates out there. Amazing man, just telling his story. His center that he created, curing cancer, treating children with autism and underlying conditions, gone. And this is what happens to these doctors. So we as advocates take huge risks, but I can definitely tell you, I've always felt very protected by God's angels. Like I feel like this was my purpose. I was led to this purpose. And I feel very protected on that note. But there's so many people and doctors speaking out. Listen to them. They didn't just spend all these years getting their medical licenses, practicing and all this stuff, only to turn around and lose it for nothing, or to speak garbage. It's, there's so much data in science. And as people continue to attack Bobby Kennedy, the one thing he says is, show me the science, prove me wrong. I ask you, prove me wrong. I will listen. And he said he's got over like 300 doctors and scientists working with Children's Health Defense on, discovering all these different things, and fact finders, and one scientist who is a Nobel Prize winner. They're not going to risk all that. They're not, unless they choose to do what it is that they were meant to do, and that's to do no harm.
Yeah.
When people tell me, because I had a very wonderful man who took the time to write my foreword. And that's Dr. Andrew Wakefield. And Andy has a story. You know, in the late 90s, he was a very prominent gastroenterologist in London. And that was through the 80s and 90s. He did not ask to be a part of a movement or a fight or anything. But parents came up to him, mostly moms, and said, you know, my child received the MMR and they have really bad stomach pain. And now they have autism. So he chose to do a study with 12 other doctors underneath him in the Lancet on the link between the MMR and gastrointestinal issues, because that was his field. He was a gastroenterologist. And so in there, parents stated that after they received the MMR, they saw their child regress into a state of autism. And it's the story of thousands of parents. I can't even begin to tell you. And it's my own story as well. And so at the end of his research, he said that, you know, there was no solid data that linked the MMR to autism, but he recommended that further research be done based on the statements from the parents. He did not say, don't vaccinate, don't do this, but they ate him alive on that one. So they expected him to go to a press conference and say, the MMR is not linked to autism. And he said, with all good consciousness, I cannot recommend that the MMR be given all at once. Now, since then, data has come out, and Dr. Thompson from the CDC, who became a whistleblower, came out and outed the CDC for telling him to go in and destroy the documentation when they did the MMR research study. And that research study, as they stated, did not link the MMR to autism, which that study was retracted, but people don't look at that. It actually did, before Thompson shredded it, it did state that there was a link between the MMR and autism. And so this was Andy's fight. And, you know, because he chose to advocate for these kids, to do no harm, he had no direct impact with autism. He didn't have a child with autism. He just chose to do his job. They stripped him of his license and smeared his name all over the press, making him look like an absolute monster. And I'm here to tell you that he is one of the most amazing individuals that I've ever met in my entire life. And what he's gone through, he is the director of the Back series. He has a motion picture coming out in September we're really excited about, called Protocol 7. So watch out for it. There's a little clip of me in there, so I got to be in it. And he's truly a part of this big movement. Same with Bobby Kennedy and so many others, Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Brian Hooker, Dr. Judy Mokovitz, all of them, listen to them. They are the experts in their field. They have been dragged through the mud, and they have risked their lives and their careers. I mean, Dr. Judy Mokovitz was locked up for, stating her concerns and the truth. And then she was silenced for 5 years. She was given a gag.
Seems that way, right, Tracy? Like all the truth seekers, all the ones that come out with the facts and give you the facts are locked up or silenced or smeared.
Or dead.
Or dead.
I hate to say it. Dr. Jeffrey Bradstreet, his life was taken, however it was taken. They said he committed suicide, but if he did commit suicide, he was driven to do so. But I couldn't imagine it. He had such, his life's work in the stem cell therapy. I mean, we were working with him when we took Noah to the Ukraine for stem cell therapy, was changing lives for kids with autism. And he had 2 children himself, that were on the spectrum, and he had so much to live for. So I believe in some way or another that we as researchers, as advocates, as scientists, as doctors, all of us, we're standing up and we're speaking out. And we're just asking that people do their own research. Don't believe what I say.
Yep.
I'm not a doctor. Don't believe me. Listen to the doctors. Go ahead.
Do your research.
Do your research. I can give you, there's so many studies out there.
Yep.
And they're published studies. You can find them. They might be slightly buried if you try to Google them, but you can find them. I can tell you that all the studies that I pulled for my book, all the research, it's backed up by, PubMed or some type of research study that has been done, that stated these facts. So I don't just talk garbage, or, I'm not just that anti-vaxxer, and I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm a pro-healther. So if you take those vaccines and you make them safe and effective, I'm game all day long. But when you have vaccines that are full of aluminum adjuvants and mercury, thimerosal, antifreeze, all these horrible toxins. And the reason they do this is so they get that immune reaction. So for a vaccine to actually work, so an inactive vaccine, for it to work, it needs an adjuvant to kick in that high immune reaction, so your body releases those antibodies. But those adjuvants are deadly. They cause asthma, allergies, regression, death. So let's take a look at SIDS. During COVID, parents were not taking their children in for the regular vaccines, the routine vaccines, right?
Yep.
And they were staying home, just doing virtual visits, and those children were not getting their vaccines on time. And the rate of SIDS literally dropped to nothing.
Wow.
So just look at the facts. And I don't really get into the controversy of all that in my book. I really want parents to focus on healing, because if you're focused on what caused the autism, you're not going to get anywhere. So I do say focus on healing those underlying conditions, addressing, those ailments, because a lot of times these kids are just in pain. They've got inflammation, they've got gut issues, or they're non-speaking and they can't communicate. And that in itself would have to be painful.
Yeah.
So there's so many things out there that have been out there for a while, that there's new things that are developing. And I'm so super excited because back in the day, I used to do disaster preparedness conferences with my husband. And my dream has always been to do an autism conference.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
And so I am.
There you go.
I have my first annual autism conference. It is the Autism Health Summit, and it is February 2nd and 3rd, 2024 in San Antonio at the JW Marriott San Antonio Hill Country Resort and Spa. So it's a beautiful resort. There are some amazing speakers. So you will hear Dr. Andrew Wakefield, Del Bigtree, Dr. Brian Hooker, Dr. James New, Dr. Judy Makovitz, all these amazing, amazing speakers, some awesome moms out there who will be speaking. We're going to have a viewing of spellers, and we're going to have a spellers panel of these incredible individuals who have learned to communicate as they are non-speaking. And then there'll be a VIP night with a viewing of Protocol 7. Dr. Andrew Wakefield's new motion picture will be viewed. And you can find everything that you need to know and how to register or become a sponsor or vendor on autismhealth.com. Super easy, autismhealth.com. And it's just about creating awareness and parents getting together and, communicating with each other and learning how to address these underlying conditions, but also learning how to prevent some things. So preventive health, and also, being proactive and, healing these kids' bodies and, So
I am so glad that Noah was born, because you are opening up so many doors and so much awareness. We need more people like you, Tracy. We don't have enough voices for these kids. Yeah. We really need more voices like yours, Tracy. So I think it's a good time to ask you what your T is, because I see a strong T coming from you. So what 3 words would you give me if I give you the word TEA?
So I've always thrived to be inspirational, to inspire others, empowerment, to empower others, and to create transformation. So inspiration, empowerment, transformation. Those are my 3 words.
Okay. So you give me thrive, empowerment, transformation. What else did you give me?
Inspiration, empowerment, transformation.
Inspiration. Awesome T. Really strong T. We really need more voices like you out there, Tracy. Like, we don't have enough of this out there, and these children do matter. They are not, I hate using the word special, because they are special in a way, but they are children too, I have a few friends who have autism children, and they don't like the word special. They just want to be known as me. They keep saying me. And when they hear the word special, they're like, no. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, no.
We're all special in a way. And if you look at it this way, so at some point, our children grow up. So my son's going to be 18 next month. And, we start to lose control as they become teenagers, and, they don't want to eat the diet anymore. They want to do whatever it is that they want to do, because Mom, you didn't feed me real food my whole life. No, I did feed you real food. It's just wasn't this garbage that you're like, on a crack high with.
Yeah. There's so many fake sugars in there and chemicals in there that then we get all these other illnesses.
And if people want to learn more, one of my most favorite organizations, in which I have just, become a board member of Children's Health Defense California, and to really just sign up for Children's Health Defense. You will get all kinds of articles and news and everything. It might be a little overwhelming, but you can choose whatever it is that you choose to read, or videos that you choose to watch. And it's a great source of information. And I just found out yesterday that they are going to do a Children's Health Defense bus. So they're going to be going from city to city, creating awareness. I love it. So Polly Tommy is leading it up, and there's so many great things. Children's Health Defense is also doing their annual conference. I think it's February 2nd through 5th, or 3rd through 5th. It's that weekend. So all these things you can find on Children's Health Defense, but it was a great source of resources and information for myself as well, even as Noah grew up. And what we have to understand as parents, and this is why I named the last chapter of the story of my book, Let Go and Let God. is at some point we have to realize that all of us, even our children, are all spiritual beings having a temporary human experience. And we're all on our own beautiful path. And it's a spiritual path. And, you know, when I say that this is a spiritual war, it is hands down a spiritual war, because they are doing their best to disconnect us from our children however they possibly can. And in that, on that note, I say to watch Plandemic 3, The Great Awakening. You can go to plandemicseries.com, and Mickey Willis put together another great video documentary, you know, laying it all out as to what they're creating in this world, or what they're trying to create. Because you know, us parents have to stand up for our children. You know, there is no, okay, my 12-year-old wants to have, you know, a transgender surgery, so I'm just gonna bow down to that and allow it to happen so I can fit the narrative. No, they're too young to make those life-changing decisions. There are grown-ups. There was a man who, I forget his name, he's 40 years old, and he was brainwashed, as he says, I'm not saying this, into getting a transgender surgery and taking hormones and all this stuff. And he's like, the only thing it has done is shorten my life. I am not going to live to see grandchildren, to have a family, or to do anything. And I've spent well over $1 million on surgeries and drugs, prescription drugs. And it is a way, another way for big pharma to get fat. And, you know, all these bills and everything that us parents are just fighting as hard as we possibly can. It's getting out of control. We have to, as a community, as parents, as loved ones, as a human being, we have to stand up. It takes 13%. You know, back during the Revolutionary War, it took only what, 3%. But these days it says it'll take 13, and I believe 13% is there. We just need to own our voices. We need more moms and dads and grandparents and advocates and everyone standing up for the rights of these children, because big pharma owns the medical industry. They are the biggest donors to medical schools. They just control it all. It's all controlled by the World Health Organization, and be conscious, be careful, and be prepared. So this is another thing that my husband and I teach families, is to be prepared. Next year is an election year. It is 2024 election. And this is a huge election, huge. I can't even begin to tell you how big this is. And what I recommend is that you definitely have resources and store up. I have a whole closet full of non-perishable foods. You know, have some silver on hand. Make sure you have some cash on hand, like in your safe at home, all these things, because they can immediately shut down the banks and you not have access to your money.
They've already done that in Canada when we went
Yes.
through the truck convoy.
They did. Anybody who showed up at those convoys, they were arrested. Their accounts were taken over, everything. So this is already happening. And as people are disgracing this amazing country that I live for, this flag that we have has stood the test of time, and many people have died for that flag, to hold that flag high. That's how the Star Spangled Banner was written, the song. And during a time in war, those men chose to be at war and defend that flag and not take that flag down, that their bodies, literally, their dead bodies, were holding that flag up. So our children are being taught to disgrace our flag, to go against our country, the greatest country in the world. People still come here. They're lined up at the border, brought in by busloads. I mean, my husband's been creating awareness down at the border for past couple of years now. They're busloads from countries all over the world, just coming across the border. Women and children being trafficked, sex trafficking. They're mules. There's stuff in these kids with drugs. It's horrible what's going on.
Yeah.
People need to wake up. They need to wake up. They need to be prepared. They need to educate themselves. And it is my job as a parent, as a human being, to create awareness.
We really, really need more people like you, Tracy, because I love straight, blunt people. It saves a lot of headaches, and just get out there, research. Like Tracy said, she's not a doctor, and I'm not a doctor. We're not here saying that we have all the answers. Research. You have the right to research. You have the right to ask questions. You're going to get targeted if you push, but that's okay. It, like Tracy said, 13%. We need that 13%.
Yes.
We need you to stand up, because the 13%, I agree with you, Tracy, is there. We have it, but we just really need to stand together. Stop being afraid of the big guys. Us little guys can really make a difference too. Our voices really make a difference when we start standing up and speaking out. We don't have to just say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. We need to ask those questions. And Tracy, if you had not went out and done what you've done for no one, you would not be where you are today. You would not know all the people that you know today. You would not have the information that you have today. So I want to thank you for stepping up and being a warrior mom, because it's truly amazing. Like, you give and give and give and give. And that was the word that you gave me, was giving, for how to describe yourself as a person. So I see the giving in you. Do you have any final words before we wrap up today?
As I was creating my closing, I've always said, get out there, be an advocate, step up, because it takes more than just me. I'm just one person, and all of us, start speaking out, go on podcasts, tell them your feelings or your experiences or whatever it is that you choose to share, and do your research. I promise you, if you dig hard enough, you will find the facts.
You absolutely do find the facts, and you learn and learn and learn. When you say, oh, I've learned everything, well, then you have a closed mind. You have to open the mind. You have to really ask those questions. And Tracy, having you this morning has really just, my page is full over here. I'm looking up stuff as soon as we're done, because there is so many things that we're not being told. And our children, we have to start advocating for our children. We have to be that voice. I'm big on being the voice for the voiceless. So again, Tracy, thank you so much for being who you are and bringing this to the table and bringing this story to the table. Tracy also does health and recipes and all that. So check out her website. So Tracy, if anybody would like to reach out to you or get a book, how can they do that?
So I am an integrative health coach by trade. So I do consultations, and I do a free consultation. If it has to do with parents, if they read my book, if they have actually read my book, because I spent a lot of time putting everything that I know in that book. So if you read it and you have questions and you deserve some assistance, you can reach out to me at info@warriormom.org. And you can sign up for a free consultation, or if you just have questions, I'm happy to assist you.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you to all the viewers and supporters who tune in to Tea Time. Share this Tea Time because there's a lot of good information in this Tea Time. Share it with a friend and grab a cup of tea, grab a coffee, grab a glass of wine if you have to, and just sit back and listen to this episode of Tea Time with Tracy, because Tracy has brought so much good information. I'm going to be back at 3 p.m. and then at 7 p.m. today. Every Thursday, I have 3 shows. So this afternoon, we'll be coming in with Lillian Brumpton from Canada. She's from the United States, but she's in Canada now. And then we'll be jumping into Australia and Peru. That's what we do, is we jump all over the countries. We get different voices out there. And that's what we do on Tea Time. So until 3 p.m. this afternoon, I will see everybody, and serve your tea, because that's the way we make a difference.